What if there was another form of governance where we didn't need a centralized political organization? Specifically, what anarchism can provide and offer is what can be called a proprietary, polycentric, contractual order. What this means, proprietary being based off of private property, polycentric meaning multiple, not centralized, and contractual meaning there's an actual contract, not this social contract theory. This is a different type of organization for societies. So basically, what this looks like is markets for cities, for communities, rather than having a centralized nation state or political state. Under a democracy or even a monarchy, and for that matter, even an oligarchy, we don't have private property. Technically, the property of the land is owned at the highest level by the political class, whether that be a democracy, a federal republic, or a sole king. They own the land because they're able to tax you. And when they're able to tax you, that means they have a higher claim to the land than you do. Furthermore, it's centralized. So we don't have a polycentric order. The single capital or the state is what ultimately decides the decisions at the highest level. And the contracts, that's a joke. There's no contracts currently for our society, because what happens if the police fail to meet their obligations? What happens if you have a court procedure that is actually unjust, where the punishment is like not severe enough or it's too severe? These are forms of injustice. When you have a court decision that's over punishing or under punishing, this is a form of injustice. Okay, so this creates more disorder for people than order. That is the purpose of having contractual obligations, because then you maintain a semblance of order compared to what we have today. Furthermore, in anarchism, insurance companies would be this natural framework for governance. They would be the ones who actually have incentives in maintaining the protection of their assets, their people. Under statism, people are not assets. They're liabilities. They're already paying you. And that's even before you have to protect them. So when people are liabilities, then you don't care to protect them as much. So the quality of protection goes down, the quantity of protection goes down, while the cost of protection, you can increase from the political perspective. That's why you have less quality protection. Under anarchism, there would also be a tendency towards social cooperation, towards harmonization and peace. Under statism, you have the inverse. You have wars, because the state exists by protecting people from wars. So if there's no wars, there's no necessary reasons for the state to exist. There's no justification for the state. So that's why the state, ultimately, war becomes its health. War is what finances both monetarily support for the state and ideologically, politically for the state. If there's no more wars, whether it be against, a foreign nation or terrorism or a virus or ideologies or poverty or sickness, then you will have freedom. But that's something the state doesn't want you to have. You can't be free from the state, because it's like it's a parasitic relationship that the state has on people. So what we want is a symbiotic relationship where it's mutually beneficial for both parties, those being the natural governance who's providing protection, providing security to actually, for the profit motive and the profit and loss mechanism of avoiding losses and incurring costs, they want to increase their profits. How do they do this? By protecting their assets, which are people. So then you have this contractual order, and this creates more social harmony and more cooperation. And the more interconnection you have with natural governances, think of all the European like city-states that existed during the medieval ages, compared to the nation states. I mean, the 20th century alone was the century of both central banking and democracy, and we had the most bloodshed, we had the most wars. So this is not something that's conducive to peace empirically. Okay, forget theoretically. But theoretically too, democracy basically is majority rule. It was a simulation of who had the bigger army, and that was like the simulation of war. Oh, that side would win. That's why we go for majority rule. It doesn't mean they're more correct. It doesn't mean they're more morally superior. It doesn't mean that that's a better option. It's literally just a primitive idea for might makes right. That's democracy. Okay, I think we can evolve beyond primitive ideas of conquest and go more into a society based on actual social cooperation, peace, and free markets.